Now, the Victorian government has rejected suggestions that an inquiry into child abuse by members of the clergy won't be powerful enough to bring change.
The decision to refer the inquiry to a parliamentary committee has disappointed victims' groups who wanted a royal commission. For more, we're joined in the studio by the Victorian Labor MP Anne Barker. Good morning. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Advocated on behalf of victims previously. Would a royal commission have been a much better outcome?
Absolutely, yes. I think yesterday when it was first announced I was, sort of hopeful that this was going to be a really good first step, and we will need to work with it. But on looking at it more closely, and particularly in regard to the power of a parliamentary committee to compel evidence and obtain documentation, the obtaining of documentation is a really crucial matter in this, and that's what I learnt very strongly in Ireland.
I put it to Robert Clark, the Attorney-General, who was on the show earlier, those points, the power to compel witnesses especially. What powers does the Parliament have if a witness is asked to appear, says no? The punitive measures are still fairly minor compared to what may be the case under a Royal Commission. Well,
if somebody refused to appear or refused to provide documentations, they could be held in contempt of Parliament. But I was sort of doing a little bit of investigation last night. I really can't find any recent history of what a contempt of Parliament might do. Do we bring them to the bar of the Parliament? I think that they've... there's nothing there. The powers of a commission of inquiry or royal commission to subpoena documentation, to compel witnesses, to go back and ask witnesses what that documentation meant. How did you know? To take it across dioceses, different areas, is just so important. Yep. As I say, we will work with what we've got, it's an important first step, I suppose, but a royal commission was really, really important in this matter. You cannot get the systemic problems out there and work on how you may change that for the future if you don't get the documentation and the evidence to really determine what the systemic problems were.
Some of the reasons that the government has given for the parliamentary inquiry as opposed to a royal commission or a full judicial inquiry is that it's less intrusive, it's less formal and it's less legalistic. Will that come as any kind of comfort to the victims that you've spoken to?
I think the issue of less legalistic is a point, and in Ireland there were a range of obstructions, if you like, put up in terms of legal matters that mainly that the Church put forward, and there may be comfort in knowing that that's the better way of doing it, particularly, as I say, in terms of the legal matters. But if you look at the way in which the Murphy inquiries were conducted in Parliament under a particular Act of Parliament, the Commissions of Investigation Act, they were able to manage that, the way in which victims were able to come forward, tell their story, often for the first time, go through that legalistic process. They had staff who worked with them before they gave evidence, just to guide them through that and then take them through that later. And that's the important point too with a parliamentary committee. They need to understand that there will be a lot of resources required. Research assistants, people who can go through documentation. I noticed that the Attorney-General said that a Royal Commission, in forensically audited documents, that's exactly what's going to be required.
Which you won't get from a group of overworked state MPs.
Well, it'll be the resources that they have as a parliamentary committee to get to hire people to do that work. So there's a little bit of we'll need to wait and see. I am disappointed, but we have to work with what we've got.
Would you expect people like the Catholic Archbishop of Melbourne, Denis Hart, and his predecessor, who's now Cardinal George Pell, to appear before this inquiry?
I would hope so. Why wouldn't they? These are people that are crucial to any committee or any inquiry, finding out information about who knew what, the volume, the nature of the complaints, how they were handled, how they weren't handled. They must appear before an inquiry.
Anne Barker, thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.